Okay, before we call the meeting to order, Joe, I'd like you to introduce our new employee.
This is Matthew Halverson. This is the one you all voted on for our new public works labor. Matthew, the one. Hello, happy to be here. Fit into the crew really well, and I'm glad you have me.
Thank you. Thank you, Joe. It's 7:03.
Need a motion to open.
Yeah, we need a motion to open the thanks, Matthew. Public hearing. Need a motion to open the public hearing.
I moved to open the public meeting,
And I'll second.
Okay, do we need a roll call?
public hearing.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, public hearing. Water system improvements, intent to apply for USDA Rural Development Fund assistance. Who is speaking on that?
Amy is here from Town and Country. She'll just give a quick overview of.
Yeah. So the, you all have heard about this project for quite a while, but because we are helping the village apply for rural development funding, so from USDA, they require that you have a public hearing about the project and also about your intent to apply for funding through them. So I will need minutes of this meeting, documenting that it occurred and it was published in the paper and they're meeting their requirements. If you had members of the public here, I would give a presentation about the project and why it's occurring. I don't believe you have any members of the public here that need to see my presentation, but in your packets, you do have a few slides.
Yeah.
And very briefly, this just goes over your water system, and why the project is needed. Basically, the village wants to have more storage available. So the planned improvements to the project are a new 300,000 gallon water storage tank, the water main to connect that to your system, and then some improvements on your controls systems between all your wells, your booster station, your existing reservoir, and the new one. The planned reservoir site is out on County Highway W. I don't really have much more to say about this other than the funding for the project is intended to be the $1 million that you already had allocated from the congressional spending. That's coming through the EPA. So if you ever hear me or Lauren or anyone else talking about an EPA community grant, that's the $1 million we already have, but it has to be run through the EPA, has to have a grant agreement signed with them. We're working on that. The rest of the project is we're applying for funding from USDA Rural Development. They offer a 40-year loan term. We talked about this a few weeks ago. It seemed like the best fit for this project and for the village and gave you some flexibility of what you're going to do in the future with your water system. So
What amortization?
amortization, 40 years.
Good.
Yes. You can pay it back more quickly if you want.
Yeah.
But it is amortized over 40 years. So really that's what I'm here to tell you. The plan is that once we get things a little bit more solidified on this funding and some other things worked out on the site, we'll be going out to bid early next year, taking bids on the water tower portion and then also a separate contract for the water main. And then starting that construction sometime spring, summer of this coming year. And the bulk of the construction would take place next year. There would be some final finish up work the following year. But the tank, assuming everything goes as planned and how we have the construction schedule laid out, the tank would be in service by the end of next year. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Is a booster pump only needed to pump water that's above the level of the tank water? Is that what it's needed?
If you have homes that are above a certain elevation, so I can't remember the exact elevations without having it in front of me, but if you had like the ones that are up here around your existing reservoir,
Yep.
they're all served by a booster station because the water level in that tank isn't high enough to provide them with adequate pressure. It would keep the system pressurized, but it wouldn't provide pressure that they need to have a shower or, use water in their home.
Okay.
The same thing, if, things were to develop, just, like this map over here. This area here, or a large portion of this area would need to be served by a booster station. So.
If you were not gonna be able to develop what you just described,
Mhm.
would you still put the tank in?
Well, the village, there's been a need for more storage for a number of years.
So, under what circumstance?
This tank here, that's over on this side.
Yeah.
Doesn't hold a full day's worth of water for the village. And part of that is you have some large customers that they are using a fair amount of water. Now, if you didn't have those customers, then I would say possibly you don't need it.
Those customers are.
The brewery
Et cetera.
Jack
Fire
Links,
department,
Jack
et
Links.
cetera.
Jack Links and the brewery are the two big ones. Now, they're not driving all of this, but it's also for fire flow. If you had a large fire in one of your commercial properties and you needed to provide 300,000 gallons a minute of water for a few hours, this tank here wouldn't necessarily be able to provide that. So it's governed by both fire flow and the desire to have more than a full day's worth of water in storage. And part of that is also, there's a lot of factors. The wells that you have,
Yeah, we've heard of it.
there's one generator that can run the wells or your booster station that's here. So if you had a major electrical disturbance and those wells are all down, then all you have is the water in that tank. So there's a lot of factors. I don't want to make it sound like things are dire, but it's something the village has been thinking about and planning for. a long time.
For old people, can you quantify it in terms of, like, we're at 73%, but we should be at 91, that kind of a general thing?
I don't know if I can get that detail. Let me look at this.
Well, you take the minimum, which is kind of the average for the.
Yeah,
the
so-
Usage for the year.
So I'm looking at one of my slides here. So the current tank has, so we look at, not when the tank is full necessarily, it has maybe a 5 foot range that it operates under. If it's at the bottom of that range and you needed to use all the water in that tank, it provides 221,000 gallons. The village uses, on an average day, 267,000 gallons.
Okay, you made your case.
So is that, and on a large usage day,
Yeah, you'd be
Yeah,
over.
I wasn't-
yeah.
You'd be over
And you're,
300,000.
we're right on average use.
you're,
with
yeah,
little room for anything exceptional.
I think it was 2016, there was a year where it was 500,000 gallons they used. On
Yeah.
Average daily.
so your maximum days
Two
range
tanks.
from 388 to 512,000.
Yeah, so yeah, holy cow.
So, and like I said, there's plenty of communities that are just like you that have one storage tank and normally are just fine, but if you really wanted to plan for future growth, fire flow and to have as much storage as you needed for one day on hand, then yes, you do need additional storage. And that was pointed out a decade ago when Town and Country did an initial study back in like 2003 or 2006. I can't remember the exact.
2006. I
Yes,
remember that.
okay.
Because that Boucher Hill was going in and. the
Yes,
one
yeah, and then
Across the road on 39,
that'll tell.
you had said, no, not Altel, it was the one just north of the apartments in Corey. And you said a booster station would be required.
Yeah.
Because that was the first year I was on plan commission.
Yes,
And
and
that killed the project.
a booster station still is required in that area.
Yes.
So, yes, but it's been something the village has been talking about for a long time. And you got this $1 million grant, which,
Helps a lot.
helps a lot. It's certainly not going to pay for the whole thing, but it helps a lot.
A third of it.
It's a great opportunity for you to do something the village has wanted to do for a long time.
And it's gonna help incentivize the TIF that we're looking into, if we get that done.
Yeah, the water.
If,
The TIF that got passed at the last meeting, if that goes through, that's gonna, in conjunction with this water tower, it's really gonna incentivize some of that growth. To help make it productive.
Yeah.
I-
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
Well, I know when we had a major fire in this village, when Clemens burnt down, there was 2 aerial pumpers pumping water in there. Like, how we ever kept up, I don't know, but we did,
I remember that.
but,
We shut them off.
huh?
We shut them off. I was a captain on that fire. We shut the air off because we were
Oh.
gonna drain the village.
Well, and thankfully. it was
6,000
winter, too.
gallons a minute, 6,000 gallons a minute flowing, and you add that up, 300,000 gallons, that's 50 minutes, and we got this village empty.
Yeah.
That fire lasted us how many hours?
Yeah. So it's well needed.
Yeah.
So on here you have 41% of the water is residential, multifamily, 38% industrial. That's 79%. Where's the other?
Commercial, public being village uses, and then commercial. So industrial is mainly your two big.
Brewery and Jacklin's?
Yes, and then commercial would be your gas stations, your,
Oh,
your
okay.
pubs, things like that,
Restaurants.
restaurants.
Oh, okay. That-
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's not a complete picture.
Hotels.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
Swiss Air Hotel, McGuire's Hotel.
Thank you.
Anyone else have questions? No, thank you. All right,
Okay,
well, I'm happy to stick around, but I really don't have anything else on your agenda, so,
okay, Amy.
great. Happy
Thank you.
holidays, everyone.
We'll need a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Public hearing is closed. Okay, I'm gonna call the regular meeting to order at 7:14. Please silence all cell phones. I'd look for the approval of the agenda.
I move to approve the agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Public appearances, there are none. I'd look for an approval of the consent agenda.
So move.
I have a question on 4F.
Okay,
Normally for operator license, there's usually a form in here, but I saw none.
For operator licenses, I think we haven't included those in the village board packet in the past. We stopped doing that a while ago.
Okay.
You might be thinking
I mean,
of
it's
a
been
liquor
approved by the
license.
committee, so.
Yeah,
We always.
that actually
So.
skipped committee because it was recommended by staff, and so it got added.
Where's
to the
Amber
consent.
Mall? I guess.
That's a
That's an
name.
operator, that's a person.
Amber, oh, that's a person. I see Amber Mall. Mall? Okay, that's, thank you.
I'll
okay,
second.
okay, we have a
We'll
motion.
make the motion and,
Peggy made the
Peggy,
motion.
okay.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, motion carried. Item 5, new business, consideration discussion. Liquidity sinking fund and investment policies on page 26 of your packet.
All right. So at the last meeting, Goff had provided a memo to the board for you all to review and kind of bring back to the next meeting. I did the same. I read through it and I wanted to kind of provide a memo to supplement his memo. That just kind of summarized some additional information, and provide some, decision points for the board to kind of help drive this conversation. So I just wanted to start off by clarifying for everyone. So the village currently holds funds in the local government investment pool. That's done through our bank at Lake Ridge. We're currently earning 5.39% plus Lake Ridge adds an additional 0.05. So we're currently earning 5.44% interest on all of our accounts, which is very good interest. However, we know that interest rates eventually are going to come down, unfortunately. And so kind of the impetus for Goff's memo and this discussion is to figure out, okay, how do we want to invest for the long term to try to maintain at least some good interest? That can be a really helpful tool for us for funding projects and also just building up our revenue in our general fund. So I'll just kind of quickly go through the different sections in this memo. And these kind of tie into the decision points that are at the end of the memo. So the first one is a liquidity policy. This is an important thing to talk about because if we're investing funds, we need to have some cash on hand to pay our everyday bills. And so developing a policy helps Kelsey and I know what we need to keep on hand and what we can invest. So Goff talked about 3 months of operating costs, and kind of referred to our reserve balance, which is at around 422,000. That's correct. We've always had that on hand, in our reserve. But I did want to clarify that Ellers actually recommended 4 to 6 months, of liquidity. And I did note that I think Kelsey and I, if you're asking staff to handle this on our own, that we would prefer to start with a conservative 6 months to give us some breathing room, and also just as we would figure out how to do this, have enough money on hand to be able to pay expenses easily. And I did note as well, there is a draft investment policy in your packet as well that was provided by Ellers that we can tweak. And I did note that if we do want to define a specific liquidity policy, like a specific number of months, we likely will need to add that into the policy, because right now it's a little bit more vague. It says the investment portfolio shall remain sufficiently liquid to meet all operating requirements that may be reasonably anticipated. So that's pretty vague. We can definitely make that more specific if the board would like. So that is the first point. Did you have a question?
I just had a question about, the reserve, let me get the name of it, the local government investment pool, and then the additional 0.05 from the bank. Can we do better? That's pretty awesome.
It's pretty good. Yeah,
It's temporary.
it is temporary.
Right.
It's a daily rate. And just as we started talking about this, Bank of New Orleans has lowered its rate on CDs for 1 year from 5.45 to 5.25. And starting January 1, they'll be down again. And you notice the Fed was talking about this, and they're all talking about it. And mortgage rates are down over a point just in the last 6 weeks.
Down to
So we're really moving in the direction of lower rates. Predicting it to the time, and amount is obviously fool's game, but the lead information is there.
So are bonds and all of that following suit immediately after this happens? Because then my point is that if we go and invest, we're going to invest at a lower rate anyway, because it's following suit to the Feds dropping the rates, correct? I mean, an investment isn't going to stay high.
It depends what kind of
Yeah, you
investment you
could.
do.
I mean, take a CD. You want a 18-month CD today, it would be pay the same rate for every month.
Right.
If rates drop, it still pays the same rate. If rates go up, it
But
still
I
pays
would
the
think
same
that
rate.
they would,
Understand.
because we're discussing this and establishing a policy, that by the time we take advantage of the high rate, it's already going to be lowered. You know what I'm saying?
We are likely not gonna get a rate as good as this, but we're looking more, we want a long
term.
rate. It's gonna be lower, but it's gonna be longer.
Okay.
So that's kind of the point, is we're trying to lengthen out our interest, so it's not, doing the roller coaster and going way down.
While still having that 4 to 6 month, if the board
Well,
decides.
the one thing I've
reserve.
negotiated is whatever we do with CDs, we can withdraw them at any time for liquidity. So basically, we've got roughly $4 million in cash. If we put it into CDs, we're still going to be able to withdraw it. So the reason I picked
That's confirmed.
90 days for the
That's been
liquidity
confirmed.
issue is because I was thinking we'd do 90-day CDs. So Lauren comes back and says, there are a
That's
couple of
what I'm
levels,
wondering.
that's fine with me. So now I'm suggesting we do 6 year and 18 month. So when the 6 month comes due, you then look at where you are on liquidity within your needs. And if you need to take money out of that CD, you do it because it's now cash. If you've got excess liquidity, you put it back in and raise the
Right.
demand of it, and then put it back out again at 18 months. So that's the whole point of the ladder, is it keeps coming due, keeps that liquidity issue fresh, so that the staff doesn't have to worry about where they're paying the bills.
Just a question, so the first one you say 6 months, but then the second one would be 18.
A year,
A year.
A year and then,
then 18. So it'd be 3 CDs is what I'm,
okay, so every 6 months.
right. You
Okay.
can pick whatever you eat.
I misunderstood. I thought
Yeah.
you were saying 6 months and then the next one would be 12. Every
You can
6
pick
months.
whatever you want. If you
Yes.
wanted to put
Okay.
almost all of your money in the CDs, you might pick them so that like every 60 days, one would come due. You can vary that formula, but the premise is short-term stuff comes due. Look at where you are over here in the checkbook. If
Mhm.
you don't have enough, you take it out of there. If you have excess, you put it back in and then roll it out to the end. So after that first go around, everything is invested 18 months,
Mhm.
but stuff is always coming due every 6 months. That's how you manage.
And then
money.
you could,
That's how you
after
manage
6
money.
months, you could see if we're doing a good job or not.
Yeah, yeah.
And if it's working,
Well, it's
Whatever.
if it's stuff you didn't anticipate, you know, like revenue more came in, let's put it back in and get it earning higher interest rate. Something happened that we gotta take money out, we do that.
So Golf, when we talked earlier about, this is a little off topic, streamlining, applications for alcohol and licensures. So you wouldn't have to do that and be, you know, burdened with those. Would all of this then add to the job duties that you, because if I was a minute, you know, if I was a deputy clerk, not being an investment broker, I would have no idea how to make those best, that's a huge responsibility that's a huge responsibility for you guys.
But it's no different than going over to Lake Ridge right now and saying, I wanna move money from account A to account B.
Will Lake Ridge manage?
We manage our CDs. But it's not an owner, I mean, I'm not saying the first time won't feel a little strange. I talked today with the Bank of New Glarus, and I've got resolutions that we have to sign, you know, to open up an account there. We gotta think about how much we have at any one individual institution for dealing with insurance stuff. There are always some things that when you're doing something different, that are a little different. But I'd much rather be spending the money, earning money for the taxpayers,
Right.
and not spending money doing stuff that they can do quite readily by themselves.
Would it be a board decision though, if we decided to put, I'm just gonna throw a number, if we decided to put $100,000 into a CD, wouldn't that be a board decision?
Yes,
As
and
to where to
I've got,
put it?
I've got a memo here or a motion here that does that. We would do that. Now, under Ayler's thing, these guys are making the decisions about what isn't we are invested in. They're listed as the two people that are responsible for investing. And Ayler's does interesting work, and I mean that with a capital I. And they are representing a lot of communities. I don't mind getting there, but we're not there today. I don't think we're there. And my guess is it's the bigger communities where they've got a staff, you know, that deals just with managing the money. And so they're well equipped to do some of this kind of stuff. So I'm just thinking this, the one clause that I thought Ayler's did a great job of reciting is the one that says that if you use a bank deposit, there is no risk to management to these guys. I mean, that's a statutory language. You stick the money in the bank and you have no responsibility if the bank goes up or down. That's not your job. Put it in Ayler's thing, it is their responsibility. It says so right in the form. So I'm a little uncomfortable starting out at this level when I think we probably got to get used to this level.
So how do you approach this level?
Buy CDs,
Say that again?
buy CDs, transfer some of the cash that we've got into CDs.
So we would talk to various banks and see what kind of rates we could get and go from there.
Yep,
What does
yep, I got
everything-
rates here for the Bank of New Glarus. I think you've got them
Okay.
for Lake Ridge, and we'd get the other one.
So does everything then have to be put like on a spreadsheet and then the board has to decide where we're gonna put all these, like, let's say we had $1 million to invest. Okay, then we all make a decision about where we're investing and what kind of CDs, and then it comes due and,
You'd see this beauty every month. And on it would be the CDs, and you'd look at the cash and they'd say, I'm light cash. I'm gonna take money out of the CD when it comes due. Or they say, I'm long cash, and I'm gonna put it into the CD. But we would have an opportunity to look at this thing every month and say that we want to maximize this. I think it's mostly, my biggest concern about this is only 2 or 3 years ago, interest rates were for all practical purposes 0, right?
Yeah.
And now we're sitting there with a significant increase. We probably earn across the board, maybe 350,000, including light and water last year in interest. We budgeted 5,000. This year, we're gonna earn about that same kind of money, although light and water is over in their package. So let's say 250 for us, and we budgeted 35. So that's where I'm saying, so I got 215,000, and I know I'm gonna need a fire truck in 3 years. Let's save that money. In other words, I wanna make the sinking funds realistic.
Well, here's my thought. I mean, I don't have a problem with using our monies wisely and making investments. But I don't know if our staff feels comfortable in doing that. It would be like hiring a doctor, you know, a cardiologist saying, well, you're gonna do some eye surgery here for on the weekend. You know, I don't know, if they don't feel comfortable doing it, I guess I don't know if we should put that as their, in their job.
When you say
description.
it, what's it?
What's that?
When you say it, if they don't feel comfortable doing it, what's it?
It making those decisions about, you know, and I don't know, I myself wouldn't be comfortable either making those decisions about where to put this CD or if this one's coming due, what to do next. I mean, I don't know.
I think it's based on the interest rate you're gonna get,
Yeah.
whatever's
Yeah.
highest. you
Well,
go.
and then we have a revolving door for a board, so we don't have somebody sitting here who is an investment guru that's gonna be here all the time to help us along. I just feel really scared.
In fact, that's the point of the ladder.
That's why we're setting a balance.
The ladder-
If we want to put dollar amounts in, we should.
Right.
Unless I'm missing something, you look at the highest rate with the CD.
Right.
And that's your decision.
Yeah.
Let's say the Bank of New Glarus will give us 5.2% and the other bank gives us 4.8. Well, we go with the Bank of New Glarus.
So we're just gonna be moving money around constantly. I mean, every 6 months.
You could be.
Regularly, not constantly.
On a
Regularly,
regular basis, it's,
regularly. Okay, well,
but you know the parameters.
I just think it gives an opportunity for us to keep, in fact, one of my early impressions from you was, you were asking the question about how can we possibly do this?
mhm.
It was a net bonding question. Well, this is not all the solution, but this is some of the solution. The longer we can keep higher interest rates with these cash numbers, the less we have to borrow.
So we're gonna just start out with CDs.
Absolutely. I don't want to move over into Ayers until we know more about it.
Yeah.
And then, you know, they have no minimum. We could do $10,000 with Ayers. But they're gonna send you an evaluation every quarter and it's gonna be up or down. And you're gonna sit there and say, oh, no, it's now. I mean, you just have to get used to the business of this thing pulling over time.
Mhm.
Because any kind of investment, doesn't matter what it is, real estate, housing, bonds, stock, they all fluctuate in value.
So we start this by saying, okay, so Kelsey brings and Lauren bring to the table what we have, the monies we have. And then we make a decision
Yeah,
about
well,
where this goes.
they're gonna say, we think we ought to do less and so, based on what we see for cash reserves. We think we ought to roll this CD over to 18 months. Which we will then do.
And then in 6 months, we look everything over again.
Yeah.
And then make that decision.
Yeah.
Will the bank prepare that for us to look at? Or no, because we'll have those investments in various
That's
banks.
just a spreadsheet.
What's that?
That's a spreadsheet. And remember my memo, I talked about how we reorganized
So
our
Kelsey-
spreadsheet a little bit.
Yeah.
So we can get an easier view of how this thing is working. By going away from this, which tends to be accurate but dispersed, to something that's a little more focused, so we have an easier time making decisions.
Like the 5
New paragraph. If you don't like this, let's not do it.
No,
It makes sense.
I just want to make sure that I know what kind of decision I have to make. That's huge. I mean, that's a lot of money.
Well, look what we're paying Ayers to deal with 220,000, 8,000, 18,000 bucks.
That's, turns out that's 2 years worth of income
Yeah.
and 2 years worth of fees. So their fee is 0.009, which is a pretty manageable number in terms of the fee business. Lots of fees are right around plus or minus 1%.
009?
Hmm?
You said 009? It's
0.009, yeah.
0.09, not 0.00.
That's over 2 years.
I put the fee over the assets, not the income. You're right, it's 10% of income. You're right about that. But typically when you do fees, it's a percentage of the asset.
Oh,
1% of assets equals.
So-
You're right about 10 on income.
But we're currently paying them to do what we're doing now. What you're talking about us doing.
Well, we're only doing CDs. right now. We're doing the baby.
So I'm not,
But
I'm
why
not
aren't they
perfect.
doing that?
We're not currently paying Ellers. to
I
do
mean,
this.
why aren't
Ellers is not
Ehlers
doing this.
telling us to do that?
They're
You know
not
what?
doing this service for us currently.
They,
Oh,
So
they
they are
came
an
and
option
presented
to
this
use.
to us.
okay, but they aren't currently doing it.
Correct. So
And I
it's just an
wanna-
additional option of what we can do for this whole investment.
Okay,
That's
I
what
want to
there's
add
one-
to.
I always kind of go back to the Cockroach model here, which is, let's not pay somebody else to do what we can do ourselves.
Right, but we have to have the staff to do, I have to interject. We have, I am so stretched thin as it is for what I do here. I mean, other communities that manage this stuff, like Belleville, for example, has an administrator, has a clerk, has a deputy clerk, and has a treasurer. I have myself and a deputy clerk that does not do any of the financial work, which is fine. But I think putting it on Lauren and I to tell you guys if we have enough cash or not, and to have your, I think that's crazy to ask us to do
that's what you're.
in a week.
Yeah, I mean, that's asking a cardiologist to do eye surgery. I mean, you.
I'm not saying that I don't agree with Goff and that, and I was pro investments when I got hired here. But I'm not an investment professional. I wasn't hired here to be an investment professional. And I think it's unfair to put that on Lauren and I without giving us adequate time to learn this. And what we don't have, if we're gonna take advantage of interest rates, is time.
Well, I feel about.
I mean, it sounds really good on
anxious
paper
about
until we
myself.
get into it. And I have 4 major elections next year, which is my highest priority. Absolute highest priority. I mean, we just got done talking about police hours and personnel and finance and how they don't have the staff to cover that. I mean, I'm literally doing 2 major jobs, 2 full-time jobs at other communities. And now we're gonna add the investment part into it without the help. When I was hired here, I was told that if you don't know how to do something, it's okay, because that's why the village contracts with all of these experts. We contract with the planner, we contract with financial, we contract with engineers.
Well,
We do
and
all
if you
contracts.
hire someone to do that, you're gonna pay a lot more than $18,000.
So I'm not
We have
saying
someone
we
now.
shouldn't do CDs or.
Right.
How long they're gonna be on the board?
Because the board is constantly
Changing
changing,
every
and so
2 years.
we can't
Count
have
on it.
consistency in our
That's
investments.
the point of having a policy thing. So
Yeah,
that we
that's
know
true.
what it is we're
Right.
doing on an ongoing basis.
And I agree with
It's
that.
not fair to just dump something on.
Right.
Exactly.
Right, that we all know that, right? And it's not fair to ask a changing environment here to be responsible. So that's the
Yeah.
point about policy.
Yeah.
It sits in a red book up on there. And when we have these questions, we go and open up and it says, this is what we do under these circumstances. And if we say it's not working, well, then we change the policy. But we gotta have a thread of consistency here that, but remember, I think we can not borrow $500,000 for a fire truck. We come close to not borrowing for that. That's something that taxpayers, I think, are really interested in. None of these things are, the transition is always a little difficult. I'd be most happy to walk this through if you guys weren't comfortable setting up the CDs. I had to sit for 25 minutes today to get something off a computer down at the bank, and I called up Ron and did thus and so, and then Lauren calls and says they're on vacation and or going somewhere this next 10 days and we can't get it done before year end. So then I call Ron back and say, can I have my rates good until January 10th? And he says, yes. So
And he-
there is some,
Did he confirm that's the other question I wanted to ask, and maybe he did, but typically in CDs, if you pull before they're matured, you face a penalty. He
I got
confirmed
that. I got that.
He confirmed that it would.
Yeah, I'm sending him a letter. I mean, we would have a letter that says we won't pull for a higher rate. We reserve the right to pull if we have a liquidity issue.
And you think that they would agree to that?
Oh, yeah, I've done that before. Municipalities are always concerned about this liquidity issue,
Right.
and rightfully so. And that's the one thing about the Ehlers thing is you can pull the stuff out every time, but remember, you're dealing with a market that's going like this. If you pull it out here, you're a hero. If you pull it out here,
Well,
nobody
right,
is
but
happy, and it isn't anybody's fault, but
But
that
the other
market
thing
goes
with
up.
Ellers that I think we're negating is the fact that we would have somebody that does this for a living that is advising us on decisions. And I'm not saying that means that we should go with them, but it's not like we're putting money in there and they're just saying, okay, well, I hope it does well for you. And I mean, that's their job is to help advise us. And
Yeah, but literally, they do he says so right in that agreement, right?
Right,
He says that if you put it in a bank, you have no risk, either you nor Nora,
Right, and
right?
I'm not
But if
disagreeing.
you put it in Ayers, you do have risk.
Right, I'm not disagreeing putting it in a
No,
bank.
It's just, it's a,
I just think it's unfair to,
it's
to
not that we
say-
never do it. It's not that we never do it. It's that we step into it in a regular way so we get used to doing something different than
Right.
what we've done and try and see if we can make some money doing it.
yeah, I'm all about extending the interest rates that we have, and I agree that, but that's the roadblock, in my opinion, is that we have to jump on this now, and I'm terrified that that is gonna fall on my desk and Lauren's desk to figure out I mean, I'm burying my grandma in 2 days, and now we come back and figure out how to invest $500,000 of village. I mean, that seems crazy to me. You know, like that, I can't imagine that jumping into it by January 1st with no experience, and I know golf has experience, and I appreciate that experience, but I just think staff is gonna need a little more time to figure it out, and I know that's not what we have this time.
Right, who's gonna do this?
The other big piece, and I haven't gotten to it yet in the memo, is we're talking about pooling funds together to invest, because right now they're broken up into, these different accounts. That's gonna take us a while to administratively figure out how to do that, because right now it's all broken up in bank accounts.
Well, could we get John Heller or whoever in here to sit here with us? I mean, and fill out the forms, and we sign the form, and we do it all at a meeting, and then John meets with us semi-annually and tells us where everything is going.
John wears the same hat as Ayers.
Yeah.
They have the same licensing stuff. That's the capacity that he has. And if you're gonna talk to him, if he's gonna talk to you about accounts, then you gotta have an account with him. Just like if you're gonna get Ayers to tell you.
So he just can't come in and offer, the paperwork.
Generalities, but not, I think he's very uncomfortable if he does specifics.
And the benefit of Ellers is that they know municipalities, it's their bread and butter, so they're gonna understand all of the legal requirements that we're under, all of the fund accounting, everything that we are still figuring out, they would know how to handle.
What do the rest of you think? I mean, I don't.
Quick question here. Is there like some sort of liability insurance that we could get if we go through Ellers, that if something were to blow back on you guys, at least you guys are covered, so you're not dealing with personal financial issues in that sort of a situation?
I mean, I think the policy states that we would not have
I'm not
any
personally liable.
I think they would be held harmless.
Okay, so if we would contract out with Ellers, then they would not be personally liable.
I don't know how they could be.
Do you see page 45?
I did not see.
Okay, well, it looks like this.
This is why,
This is one of their funds. And you can see what the kind of things they're investing in down here.
yeah,
And investing in, for us to invest in athletic facilities.
Right.
And it just strikes me as not where we're at.
I remember this demonstration too, and this was just an example page that they
Sure,
gave
but
us.
that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna buy into, they have several funds.
Right.
And you're gonna buy into those funds. You don't buy
Right.
individual things.
Right.
Among other things, we would be big enough to get diversification.
Yeah.
Whereas here they got $10 million. If you put another million in there, you'd be buying a pro rata share of each one of these things. It's a lot like a mutual fund.
Right.
Same premise.
Yeah. So is that what you're referring to in regards to they would be liable, or, because that's
Yeah,
what you get.
Yes. And this, we're making, if it goes up or down, it's on us.
But you
If we
just,
lost money in it, then we, the board, would be
you just mentioned
responsible for that.
too, that like CDs, they go up and down with CDs, and
But
then
if you,
everyone's not happy.
the statute says that if they invest in a bank account, that is a credit union bank account,
Mhm.
that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
If it's
something
an
that's
FDIC insured
FDIC.
thing, there is no liability.
Yeah.
But that's what we like, because we got insurance, right? That's one of the reasons why there's no liability is you got 250,000 of federal insurance, another 400,000 of state insurance. On top of that, at Lake Ridge, where we have almost $8 million,
Mhm.
we've got a letter of credit from the Federal Home Loan Bank that says we guarantee this over and above. The same is true, the Bank of New Glarus has a like Federal Home Loan Bank guarantee for the monies they have at the school district. There's just way more in there than ever could be covered by typical resident or typical individual insurance things. So you got to get something else if you're going to start putting those kind of monies together. But that's what they did for us with our village account. That's got a letter of credit from the Federal Home Loan Bank.
Right.
Having the IRS list that as a proper thing for us to do. You can imagine if you're the state of Wisconsin, you're banking at First Wisconsin Bank in Milwaukee, and you've got $1 billion floating through there or $8 billion. I mean, somebody's got to be covering those kinds of risks. It's just so much money. And typically we haven't had so much money here, but now we do. Now we got a fair amount. 8 million is not chicken feed. And we want to make sure we're taking good care of it. That's what these guys have been doing.
So the decision points for tonight, at the end of the memo I wrote. So the first one is, how many months of operating expenses should we use for liquidity? And should that be written in policy? Or should it be continued, or should we use the vaguer language on that? Decision point number 2 is, would the village board like to allocate interest separately to each sinking fund or pool interest together as Goff is suggesting? And then decision point number 3 is, would the village board like to utilize Ellers for investment and cash management services, or would you like to ask staff to handle investing on our own? So that's kind of the main decisions that we're looking for tonight.
So for the first one, I agree. I would love to see us be very conservative in regards to this. So a 6-month liquidity is what I'm gonna we stick with. If we get into a situation where we're like, okay, we're getting comfortable with all this, then we can revisit the issue. Yeah, so that's my opinion there.
I second that. I agree with those.
Was that a motion?
Yeah, sure. Motion.
The other nice part about that is that it's also the liquidity number for the light and water. 6 months.
Mhm.
So we wouldn't have to be worried about what page we're on.
Do you want it written in an investment policy to say 6 months and to be revisited annually or something like that? Because we'd have to rewrite the policy if we wanted to change it.
Right.
It could also say something like set by the board and will be revisited annually, and not having a specific month, but the board would set a specific month separately.
I think at the beginning, it'd be good to revise, look at it every year. And then at some point, if we don't think we need to anymore, we could say every 3 years.
Yeah.
But at the beginning, yeah.
It's a starting, it's a start.
Yeah, okay.
So how does that translate? We're gonna consolidate interest?
We're on
Is that how
number
you're
1.
reading it? Or not?
We're still on the first question.
I thought that was liquidity.
Yep,
Yeah.
that's what we're
Yeah.
talking
That's what
about.
we're talking about.
Oh, I misunderstood. I thought we'd moved on. So now.
I was just getting clarification on whether we wanted 6 months written into the investment policy, or whether
Yes.
we just want the board to revisit it each year, and we don't necessarily need a number written in the policy.
No, I think definitely. put it
I think
in
it's just have a number.
And then come back.
And that was the motion you made, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Months and you seconded it.
Can you clarify?
I have 6-month liquidity. I do not have a motion or a second for the second part of that decision point question.
The second part is the sinking fund.
Write it down.
Should that be a written policy, or the draft policy language is sufficient? Is your motion?
Yeah,
What did you say, Mike?
written. Written is the policy, 6 months.
Need a second.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Any further discussion?
Can you read the motion again, just to be clear?
Sure, so for decision point 1, Mike Bell motioned that we should have 6-month liquidity in funds, and Peggy seconded it. For the second part of that decision point, Mike Bell motioned that the 6-month marker should be written into the policy, and Peggy seconded it.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
All right.
Opposed, motion carries.
Right, so the second decision point, would the village board like to allocate interest separately to each sinking fund, which is what we're doing now, or pool interest together? So when we're talking about investing funds, we're likely going to have to pool our money together and invest it. And so the question is, are you comfortable with that interest rate not, or that interest revenue not being allocated back to our sinking funds? So our building.
Can I ask?
Yeah.
What is the total on the collective sinking funds? Is it worth even separating out? Is it a ton? Is it?
Well, let's look right here. Here's, I'm gonna round up. So here's 250, 300, 350, 400, 700. You know, you got $1 million right here. These are our sinking funds.
Which ones are you looking at? Sorry,
And it's
I don't
separate
think we
ones.
had that much.
no, we
Oh,
don't.
yeah. Right here, million bucks.
Do we have $1 million?
Yeah, but some of that is TID money, and some of that is reserve money, some of that, the actual sinking funds that I think Lauren was talking about, and correct me if I'm wrong, Lauren, are like building sinking fund, police sinking fund,
Right.
car sinking fund.
And it's not a lot in each fund,
No, I think it's like
But that's the point. Okay.
but I mean, it collectively, is it more than 100,000 in sinking funds?
a little bit more.
A little bit more.
I don't have the numbers in front of me.
But we wanna, in my view of this, those sinking funds are right now dormant. You saw the note from Laura that we haven't added to them because of budgetary issues.
Right.
But I think that's where the interest comes in, is you can make those sinking funds be meaningful. That is to say, cut down on borrowing just by putting them in one place and then making annual decisions what you want to do with it.
But those sinking funds have to be liquid, right?
No,
No, okay.
I mean, not necessarily, like, for example, later on tonight, we're gonna be talking about using building sinking fund money to pay for a new furnace. So it's, right now, our policy is that if we use sinking fund money, we have to have board approval.
So
But
if we pulled it together, let's say we had, let's say we had $100,000, we had 30,000 for a truck and 30,000 for police and 30,000 for utilities. Okay, now the police need their car. We're gonna pull $30,000 out, and then you guys gotta figure out how much interest they get and what day that was taken out, and then the other two with the 60,000 or whatever's left. You have to then establish that they're earning that. I don't, how do you do that? You'd have to be an
It
actuary.
can be done, but I think it's a futile exercise. That is to say, you're taking little bits of money and adding it to a little bit more money. And this just doesn't get us anywhere. We gotta, if we're gonna get somewhere, we gotta put this thing together on the table like a turkey. And we're gonna say, once a year we have a turkey, and what are we gonna do with it? So we're making a collective decision about how best to utilize that turkey.
I don't disagree with any of that. I just think it's a management mathematical issue that I certainly wouldn't have any knowledge on how to do. So let's say Jeff gets his money for his sinking fund and his interest, and then 2 months later, Joe pulls for some piece of equipment. Now we have to add 2 months of his interest onto that, but then what?
Now you're
I
spinning.
think
I
your
just,
wheels.
I,
You're
can I just,
spinning-
I just wanna clarify, the decision point is, would the village board like to allocate interest separately? So I guess we need to be clear, are we talking about, if we're talking about sinking fund interest, it truly is a little over $100,000. Those are the actual, what we call sinking funds. And I think that's what Lauren was referring to, correct me if I'm wrong. Now, if we're talking about combining all of those sinking funds together, so PD no longer has their own and Joe no longer has his own, we're all together. That would mean that we're combining them together and we're no longer keeping track of how much is the PD and how much is the.
That's what a spreadsheet is about, Kelsey. You know, you put that onto a spreadsheet, you are keeping track of it. You've just got all the money in one place, so you can buy a CD. It's very different than what you've described.
She was just clarifying.
Hmm?
She was just clarifying.
Yeah.
I think what we're talking about here is,
Okay, go. Let's talk to the department.
can I just clarify? We're not getting rid of sinking funds. That's not what this
Correct.
proposal is.
Yeah.
It's
That's what I was trying.
not allocating interest to the sinking fund. So we would keep track of how much are in sinking funds and they would remain as is. And then the interest that they accrue would go to a separate pot that we could use towards other things.
And that's what I was getting at.
Yeah.
Like, I think Peggy, I think what you were explaining is if we would combine all the sinking funds together. And then you're right in that it would, right now, they're broken down on the bank side and I have spreadsheets that show what each sinking fund has. But all I think I was trying to clarify is that the question on the piece of paper says, should we be allocating interest separately? So the PD would keep their sinking fund, Public Works would keep their sinking fund, but the interest they earn on the $20,000 in that sinking fund would no longer go to that sinking fund. It would go to a separate fund that we would be investing.
There you go.
And what do you people think of that? Joe?
Well, there's a couple of things. So you take my entity alone. My sinking funds are probably worth a heck of a lot more than any other department here. And you have to separate utilities from streets.
Yep.
You have to do that. Two, I have sinking funds that are worth all this money. And then here we go making it off of that. If it's not coming back into my streets, I'm losing money. Because now you're gonna take that money that you made off of my sinking funds and Jeff's gonna get a brand new squad car. It's not doing anything for my streets. And if Jeff takes his money and all of a sudden I get a brand new dump truck and he can't get a squad car, I just took it from him. It's, you gotta look at that aspect. And the other thing that I wanna say is, you know, one of my top things about Elders, and one of the things you said, Dolph, about this, I can tell you right now, some of the biggest municipality utilities that are out there in this state, they are run by people like Elders. In fact, I'm gonna say Tim was my sponsor for WPTI. Tim runs the Wanakee Utilities. He worked for Elders for years before he went to utilities. And that man does nothing but sit in an office and do nothing but CD work every day. He went to college for it. He's got 2 master's degrees in business and investments. That's all that guy does to make that company money. Elders is a group that sits down at a table that everybody at that table is equal in their degrees, how they invest that money. They are so professional. It's unbelievable. They're not for the big cities. Big cities have their own organization that does that for them in their own departments. Elders does it for small communities, Blanchardville, Belleville, Monticello, maybe Monroe. And, you know, Elders is out there as a big professional company. And I hate to say that, but they're good at what they do. And the other aspect of it is we're looking at our local banks here. Are we looking at any other banks? When you say this, we keep saying the local banks, the local banks, the local banks. Who's going to profit out of that local bank?
What's the point? The local bank pays taxes. You want me to rebut that for you?
No, but who's going to profit out of that bank? They're shareholders of the bank.
Yeah, exactly. How is that any different than Lake Ridge?
Okay.
And how's it any different than what goes?
I'm just saying in some aspects of government entity, you better watch what we're doing, because if somebody says the wrong thing, we could be sitting at a.
But that's the point of being in the banks. By statute, we have no liability. And Ehlers says that in their agreement. If we go to Ehlers, we do have liability. I'm not saying they're not good. I'm not saying we might not use them in the future. I just don't think that's the place to start, is handing them significant amounts of money and saying invested in athletic facilities or sewer revenue bonds or stuff like that, stuff we don't know anything about. I mean, nothing. And I did this, I've done this for a lifetime, and I can't tell you how I would pick between one athletic facility or another as to whether it'd be appropriate to invest in it.
So go, if you want to take this money and you want to invest this, and you keep saying that we got to buy a fire truck for $500,000, right? Anybody go to that fire department and say, sharpen your pencil?
Oh, I'm just telling you what they said.
And the other aspect of it is, so then there's an entity that I have equipment that's built back at I mean, you people that have been to my department, I have equipment that's sitting down there that's built in the 70s. I'm sorry, it's 2023.
Are you on the capital plan, Joe?
Yeah,
Right, well, that's what we're looking
How many
at, is the
years?
capital plan. How much do you need for yours? You sit at the table the same as everybody else. You're not isolated. You get as much part of this decision as anybody does. I just use the fire department as an example. We know they want a fire truck in 3 years. Well, maybe Joe needs stuff in 2 years. Well, we better make sure he's got the money to do it. That's the whole point.
I look at the library and like, I'm behind them, but hopefully they get for a new library.
Yeah.
I'm behind that.
500.
I just,
That's
It's way more contentious than I thought it would be. And I'm not sure what to do with that, but it's obvious that there's not much comfort here with making these decisions. Why don't we move on?
Well, how do the rest of you feel? What do you think? Go with this or go with Ellers? What do we do?
Time for since CD rates are abnormally high right now, I'm with the CD plan for 6 months to 18 months. And then we can reevaluate.
So just to be clear, are we skipping decision point 2 about the interest? I just want to make sure I have.
Oh, the sinking funds?
I
Yeah,
think
so
we
the
should,
individual sinking funds, how they're gonna allocate the interest, that's where we.
that's where we're at.
Yeah.
actually, yeah.
So,
That's a lot to bite off if you're not gonna go with those.
well, that's point number 3. So we haven't even gotten to that
And
point yet.
once again, point number 2 is just asking if the interest that's allocated to these sinking funds every month, not the sinking fund amount, but the interest.
Well, then you're gonna have departments that are gonna be groveling for, well, you took, I don't see that working.
Yeah.
I don't see it working at all.
I guess I'll clarify too. I mean, if we're gonna be pooling funds together for investment purposes, it's actually gonna be more work to allocate that interest back to the sinking funds. I mean, we'd have to do like some pro rata basis and it'd be a spreadsheet, but
What,
I'm not saying that this is not possible, and I'm not saying that I'm not willing to do it. I will do whatever is in the best interest of the village. All I'm saying is, I agree with Goff in that interest rates are going to start going down. So if we're gonna take advantage of it, we need to do it. We can't wait till April. My concern is that I'm not ready to do this in 3 days.
Let me ask this, what municipalities, small municipalities or villages have this strategy and do it themselves without another office? What municipalities are investing?
I don't think we can answer that.
I would never expect staff that's not
I
invested.
mean, when I go to like clerk conferences, the majority of the people that have, well, frankly, there's not a lot of municipalities our size that have money to invest. We're in a very healthy financial situation in that aspect. But for some of the maybe a little bit bigger communities or like Belleville or wherever that size that can invest, they either have a separate person on staff that works with somebody like Ellers or some kind of financial advisor, or some of the major municipalities. I was in a group with somebody from Madison. They have their own team that work on this, that's what they're specifically hired.
Do you know of any municipality that floats this boat alone without a?
not that I'm aware of. Yeah, probably large,
Right.
some Perry might. Right.
And I mean, and to be fair too, we haven't obviously called and asked if they do this, you know.
Right.
The other point I'll make too is, if we want to start with Ellers, Kelsey and I can get a process down. We can learn the ropes through Ellers in a year or, I don't know, a significant amount of time when we figure out our process. Maybe we could do it in-house. Maybe we find a comfort level with that.
Am I wrong in remembering that? I thought we asked Tammy specifically if we didn't want to go with Ellers and invest outside of local banks, if we wanted to invest in CDs and local banks, would Eller still help us get our feet under us? I thought that question was asked, and I can look back, and I thought the answer was yes. Obviously, we would have to pay them for that service, just as we pay them to help us with bonding and.
She was saying, like, ultimately what they're doing is they're recommending, this is what I would suggest you guys go off and do. You can take your money, it's our money, we can do
Right.
whatever we want with it, really, but they're providing us information and they're helping us through that process. And it's for $18,000 over 2 years. You know, it's
Over 2 years.
2 years.
It's roughly investing 4 million.
That's
They've
a
invested,
no-brainer.
in that formula, they've invested more than our money in the example they've got. So I don't think the example is really very helpful. They'd probably be doing something like $1.5 million or something, and then that would be a fee of $3,000. You know, it's that kind of a thing.
I guess-
The example is a little.
Gotcha.
That would be my question is, if the board says, no, we don't want to do the outside investments that Ellers is offering, like Goff pointed out, the list of athletic facilities, we want to stick with our local banks, but staff is saying, we're not comfortable at this point doing it on our own. Is there a compromise that we can have Ellers help us get started on this? So I don't know, I'm not saying that this is.
What do you say you're asking Ellers to do? What are you asking them to do?
Determine first of all, help determine, do we have enough cash on hand or not? I mean, I don't feel qualified to tell the
You're
board.
not changing the liquidity at all, because I've got withdrawal privileges built into each CD. So it's no different than it is today.
Right, but you had just mentioned that after when a CD is coming mature, the staff will come to the board and say, yep, we should do this, nope, we should do that. I don't feel comfortable doing that at this point, is all I'm saying.
Well, if we did 1.2 million out of 4.5 million. Right? It's a minor amount. It's less than 30% of our total
Yeah.
cash. So the only question is, do we really want to expand the CD business a bit or not? It's not a big decision. You can
Right.
say no, just as easy as you can say yes. It doesn't really, it's not huge.
Right, yeah. I guess I just want to be very forward with my comfortability of advising the board on anything to do with investments at this.
Fair
point.
enough. I don't think it ought to be, I'm not talking about recommendations from you, but I do think it's a board decision. That's one of the comments in here that is on the last page of Laura's memo. It says, and ask staff to handle investing. I'm not for that. This is a board decision. You guys are not having to make those kinds of decisions. I just don't think that's fair.
Right,
We're asking you.
right, but I just know, like, when the board's making those decisions, typically in the past, when the board has made decisions like this, they've asked the staff, do we have this?
This is what we would look at. We would say, oh, look how much cash we have on here. We know we need 6 months. This gives us leeway to do a little more. Or this is the document that we make decision off of. But in my mind, it's clearly a board decision, it's not fair to stick it on you guys.
But a board decision must also be aware of, I know what I think right now. I think it's causing too much upheaval in staff, in departments. We can always drop Ellers if we know what we're doing. I think I'm all for getting enough investment, enough interest from our money. And I think without chaos, people leaving, people upset, we go with Ellers.
Yep.
Start out with Ellers. And if the learning curve is easy, great. If it's not,
You want to invest in Ellers investments?
I want to start out like that.
Oh,
You're-
I couldn't be more opposed.
Well,
I couldn't be more opposed, Peggy. Look at the proposal that Ellers puts on
I
the table
know.
with the kind of investments that you want to invest in athletic facilities?
well,
Is that your
we're building
idea?
one.
Huh? That's what you're gonna get. Look at that spreadsheet that they brought us. Where is that thing? I haven't got it.
Well, where-
Is it down here a ways?
So I guess we're now discussing point 3, correct?
Yeah, so.
If we go beyond CDs,
I'm gonna go ahead and
I'm
make a
opposed.
motion
Well,
I'm opposed.
I just think
to
that
utilize Ellers for investment.
putting that responsibility on people that don't want it or aren't qualified in a department that is upset, we can't do that. We can't take what is a fine-tuned engine that's running and throw a wrench in it right now.
Then leave it the way it is. Do not go to Ellers.
Okay, well then, whatever, but I just don't want staff, department heads. I just don't want the apple cart being upset right now.
Then don't do it. That's the solution. I say that in my memo. If you're not comfortable with this, don't do it. Don't tell, you explain it to the taxpayers, why you let money sit and run down in rate when you could have gone out and bought CDs. It's, CDs are, not- you buy CDs all the time in your life, I bet, right? Don't tell me. Lots of people buy CDs.
I want to be clear, I'm not uncomfortable purchasing a CD from a bank. I'm not uncomfortable doing that. What I'm uncomfortable with is managing it long-term and giving the board the background information that we've historically given them when we've made decisions about this, whether we should reinvest, whether we need to pull back, whether we need more, whether we need less. That's the part I'm not comfortable with. I'm comfortable if the board says, Kelsey, I want you to call Lake Ridge or Bank of New Glarus tomorrow and put $15,000 in a CD. I'm comfortable, I can set that up.
If they could guide us, that would be awesome.
But I don't know that that's what the local
Right.
banks do. I don't know.
I don't know.
I have personal CDs and I don't look to the local bank to guide me on those decisions. So I don't know if they would do it permanent. I have no idea. I don't know.
Roger, what are your thoughts?
Well, I could see where, I guess, I'd be more comfortable kind of knowing a little bit idea of how much we think we want to invest into you. But my biggest problem is if this deal with investing the sinking funds just is driving me bananas because I don't understand if, let's say the police department, let's say we put $100,000 on the sinking funds. And Joe's, we take 60,000 out of Joe's fund and 40,000 out of Jeff's fund. Then it's gonna get back to, so we'll make it say 5% interest. Then we gotta figure out how to allocate that damn interest money back into that sinking fund, so Jeff's sinking fund grows and Joe's grows.
I don't care about the interest. I just wanna make sure my money doesn't disappear. I don't care about the interest. It's the money I got in there that I know if the computer goes down and I'm not budgeted for it, I can use that money to go get a computer.
The interest could be.
Honestly, I think it would be really helpful for us to actually be able to budget that interest in our revenue for like the general fund, for example. You know, we had to make up a $50K deficit this year for the 24 budget, and to be able to increase the amount of interest that we're budgeting for would be a great use of, I know Goff has talked about capital purchases, but that would be my number one
Well,
priority.
you guys are the experts. I mean, whatever, however you allocate that is.
Can I say that? 1 second. Could I see your sheet 1 second?
Sure.
So I just want to make sure too, for my own help, when we're talking about interest on sinking funds, to me, that means, like I said, street, building, police. I'm not talking about like the TID 3, the revolving loan, and this is just what I think when I hear sinking funds. So if the board is intending that the interest, because all of these accounts listed here, that the whole board gets every month, they're all getting interest allocated to their specific account. Now, some of it, for example, the TID money, I'm pretty sure after talking, we have to keep that with the TID.
Could be.
So there's some of these that we can't feel the interest. But then also, I think the board has talked about keeping utility and village separate.
Yes.
So, and I would defer to Lauren and our utility staff on how separate the utility has to be, if it can all be one pot of utility, or does that have to be separated between wastewater treatment, stormwater, between
We could
fund?
probably keep them separate, but we could probably invest the utility money together and then allocate it out.
And then the other thing is the library is a separate fund. So although the library is under the village umbrella, the library is a separate fund. So would we be keeping the library interest together or with that? Because right now, the general fund has one interest fund where all the interests go. And the general fund is me, Jeff, Joe. That's not our sinking funds, but that's just our budget. But we have all these separate funds for different things. So I just want to make sure I'm clear on what the board wants as far as when you say sinking funds, are you solely talking about these handful of park and pool, police, building? Or are you talking about any fund on this sheet that's not the checking account?
You gotta look each one individually and make a decision.
Well, I'm just
Right.
clarifying.
No,
because of
no
what
question
that-
about, it. Isn't there a fund on their donations to police?
Yep,
That's gotta stay separate.
Yep.
That's not our money.
correct. So like, and like Ninth Avenue Borough, that would be like a bond that we got. I don't know the rule, like, can we take interest off of that and use it to pay my salary? I don't know.
That's something Tanya Ellers talked about.
Right.
I think there's some
Right,
restrictions on what you can do with that, but
Right.
yes, that could be included.
okay, so then I guess that's just the only thing I wanna point out is that when we go through account, if there's accounts that we're saying, nope, can't do that, nope, can't do that, I mean, we're narrowing. I just wanna make sure the board is aware of how much that interest actually is going to be on the accounts that we can actually pull together. And I'm not saying we shouldn't do it, but it's not interest on $8 million. It's interest on, take away the TID accounts and the library account and the utility account. So I just want to make sure that that's clear in whatever motion is made in regards to sinking fund interest, that those funds are clear. Thanks.
I got a bet, but I bet you understand way more about this than all the rest of us put together. The difficulty here is we're talking about language, that we're just changing some of the language about how we talk to each other. So don't lose your confidence on all this. You do know what's going on. You do know how to
Yeah.
get from Friday to the next Monday. And if we can help you doing that, so be it.
Yeah,
I have
I'm,
every confidence in
yeah,
you.
thank you. I'm confident in knowing what the village has and being able to figure out those numbers. The only thing that I'm saying is I'm just not an investment professional and I'm not saying that CDs require you to be an investment professional. And if it was my own personal money, it'd be a different thing. But I mean, I just don't feel comfortable right now tonight saying, yep, I can manage the village investments and it'll be fine. And that's all.
And this is the point about a collective decision, and that's the point where I quarreled with Lauren about that last statement about who's making decisions. This is our decision. And you guys are helpful and make it happen. But it's really up to us to decide where we're going with it.
And also determining how to get there, right?
Yeah,
Like, yeah, you wouldn't be
Yep.
depending on staff to
Right.
tell you, this is how
Well,
much you should.
I mean, it's, there are two parts to the puzzle, one is, what are the mechanics and what's your objective? And the other is how do you get there? And
Right.
like I had to sit for half an hour today, seeing if I could convince Ron to not have the withdrawal thing. And then when we came back, Lauren said, we're not gonna get it done before, then I called him again saying, can I have those rates until January 10th?
Right.
So a little bit of this is just because I've been around this game for a while.
Right.
I'm also old, so don't count on me.
You are?
Hey, Jeff.
Yeah.
I like you talking about your sinking fund. So in your sinking fund, it isn't specifically said like for a squad car or anything. It's
I
just
have
a
two,
sinking fund.
I have two sinking funds that I am aware of.
Well, you have one he has
Yeah,
one
one,
sinking
but
fund that's separated. So I have a spreadsheet, as Goff alluded to, I have a spreadsheet for all of our sinking funds. But the PD sinking fund is actually 3 different sinking funds. It's PD squad, or I don't know what we have, the basic squad
Yeah.
car. PD equipment, which is tech equipment, and then the fire department actually has about $800 left from the last time that we borrowed for a fire truck. So it's actually broken down 3 different ways, and right now what I'm doing every month that we get interest is I'm taking the balances of each of those individual 3 and figuring out the percentage and then breaking the interest out that way. So it's not, I'm doing work on figuring out the interest now. So like, as Lauren said, if we're gonna talk about starting to pool our money, that was my point I was getting at, is if we're gonna say we're gonna pool our money, I don't see the need for me to then be still breaking out interest to,
Pool the interest.
right,
Right.
but
Because
there would be a need to break out that
Yeah,
interest
yeah,
then.
then we
is
can make a
what I'm
decision
getting
about it, because one thing I noticed in our budget process is last year, 22, we budgeted $5,000 worth of interest and we earned 2 1/4 or something.
Mhm.
Maybe, let's say 175. This year rates were higher.
Mhm.
We earned 250 more or less, and we budgeted 35,000. Well, that's 200 grand.
Right,
And I would like to make decisions with that 200,000, which facilitate what these guys have to have in order to do their job. And what we can do to save money for the taxpayers by not borrowing
Right.
as much. So that's kind of,
Right.
why didn't I think of that before? I got to write that down. It was positively inspired. Well, I'm not inspired.
I, for one, am no financial wizard at all, and it just kind of scares the hell out of me that, we've always depended on Ellers for some kind of financial advice to do this, just like we do with when we do a street job or anything, we got people that we contact to guide us on how it should be done. It's just, It kind of scares me.
I think it's mind boggling and I really, I'm rethinking how I'm looking at this. Or it just, I don't think I've ever been on the board where I've had so much, I felt such a a scare. I'm scared of the responsibility and I've never really been in a situation where, you know, we have our departments and our staff it frightened as well. So I'm gonna make a motion to table this until January, maybe.
I think.
Well, we have a motion on the table.
Yes.
Oh, what is our motion?
Mike Bell motion to utilize Ellers for investment. That was the last motion that I had.
What was the motion?
Mike Bell voted or
Oh, I
motioned
didn't know that.
to utilize Ellers for investment in cash management services.
I missed the verb. What's your motion, Mike? To do
To
what?
utilize Ellers for investment in cash management services as listed in decision point three.
I'm sorry, my hearing must be going to hell.
I agree.
Decision point three, to utilize Ellers. Yes. Basically. That's what I have as
That's
the
what I
last
thought you
motion
said.
on the table.
So my viewpoint is that, if we end up utilizing them here at all, at the very least, we're paying for knowledge. They're gonna advise Kelsey and everyone in regards to, okay, this is. I just was not listening.
So you're willing to take the risk for their investments?
Yep. Because they are a professional service.
That doesn't change the fact that it's risk, and it doesn't change the fact that the statute is clear that there's no risk if we keep the money in banks. There's no risk to us. And if you go with Ellers, there's risk. And it could be substantial depending how much money it was.
I was in the meeting with Tammy and I was.
Plus, when you do that, you're specifically delegating the authority to these two to make the decisions. That's what their plan calls for. Two people that they make decisions.
But I think it doesn't have to be necessarily, I mean,
We would bring
yeah.
that information to the board. I mean, Tammy talked about how she would prepare reports and we'd bring that to the board.
Doesn't change the fact that the decision making is yours.
Well, I think if these two ladies came to us and said, okay, we got $1 million, we wanna invest through Ellers. I think it's a board decision then to say yes or no.
And
That is what
not
this-
take the advice from the professionals who represent many other communities.
Roger, how long have we used Ellers? Long time.
Yeah, but we haven't done any investing with them. I
Right.
mean,
They've
it's
been with
on
us
us.
a long time.
As long as.
How much are we willing to invest with them?
I guess my question is, couldn't Ellers still advise us and we couldn't we tell? Because I know we asked Tammy this, if we choose that we want to keep it in local banks. She just said that the local rate may not be as good as the federal rate, but that we could do whatever we wanted and they would still, is that accurate? I don't know.
We have them come in.
They work for you. I
How
mean,
much
they
do
work
you,
for us.
how much are you willing to invest with us? Dollars, how many?
I don't think that's an answer. That's a question tonight.
Let them come in and talk to us.
And as,
So when you get those questions answered.
We got let's take care of Mike's thing here.
the main reason why I want to go with Ellers here is that they are going to advise us and give our personnel more information, more education on this world than the, 2, 4, 6 of us arguing over stuff that we don't know about.
Yeah.
But Mike, just think about it in terms of the loans that we did. I saw it on Ellers
I'm
website.
not even saying that.
No, it's the same
Stop
thing.
interrupting. So I'm just saying, we don't even have to invest. We could say, okay, we're thinking about going through this investment process here with you. Can we start talking about it? We're gonna contract with you because they're going to actually provide us with some sort of information. And if we're like, okay, we don't feel comfortable doing it, we're not gonna do that. But at the very least, our personnel are going to learn something. And so that's what we're doing. We're investing in our personnel to learn.
It's not the agreement you're signing.
I'll second it, Mike.
So you're looking to look to Ellers for financial advice or investing through Ellers? Because this says investing here.
Yeah.
That was your motion, was I had to utilize Ellers for investment management investment and cash management services.
So we can learn from them.
That's
Then
different
move on.
than advising, though, is what he is saying.
Yeah.
Then I would change my motion.
And
Because I just clarified, they make their money through the investment.
Then make
And
it-
so that's kind of how we pay them.
right, so I guess my question to the board was, we would be paying Ellers to help us do this, but it would, the way I understood it, we could choose to invest everything in local banks with Ellers advising us. Even if they say, oh, your best deal would be to invest in X, Y, and Z, we could still say, no, we want to keep it in local banks. They would still be advising us along the way. Yes, we would still be paying them. They're not gonna do it for free.
Right.
That was my question to the board is that,
Every time they go to bond through Ellers, it
We
costs
pay
us
them.
money.
and when we took the Woodford State Bank loan this year that we didn't use Ellers, we still paid Ellers because they helped us secure that, or not secure the loan, but do the,
And it's an annual contract, so.
It's, well, it's based off of whatever service they're providing.
Right.
So, for example, when we go out to bond, we pay for them to help us with that. But we don't have like a contract with them that says we pay them X amount each year for services. It's whatever service they're providing. So this is another service that they can provide us.
Right.
Same with, you know, when they did the cash flow analysis, we paid them a lump sum for that.
so we have a motion and a second for that, and then I guess Mike wants to amend his motion. Do we have to vote on this before? Or is that?
Can we, maybe we just need to drop it and start fresh here.
I think we
We could.
could make a motion to rescind your
Yeah.
motion.
Even
I
if it
think,
has a
Lauren?
second? I think if it has a, I think if it's seconded, I think there has to be a vote, correct?
I'm so bad at Robert's.
Well, we could just vote it down and it's.
Right, that's what I'm saying, yeah.
Okay. Okay, all in favor, say aye. Opposed? Aye. Okay, got that.
Okay. Sorry. Make
So-
sure I have it accurate.
Is that it on this issue?
Well, are we, is there- so right now, what I've gotten from the board, moving forward from staff. We are going to have 6-month liquidity and we're gonna have that written into our investment policy. That is the only decision points that the board has made. So as of right now, we aren't pursuing Ellers, we aren't pursuing CDs, we aren't pursuing anything. We're just updating our investment policy. So if the board wants to do something beyond that, we would need a motion or something.
So I'm suggesting we do 3 CDs, 400,000 each, million
Can
two.
I have that copy when you're done reading it?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. I'm gonna try and keep
You
up.
wanna read them all?
Yeah. I'm gonna read
Yeah,
it.
you can change the amount to whatever you want. I just thought 400 was. We could do 250, you know, whatever you want, but basically trying to lock in longer rates.
If
And
that's your motion, go off, read.
The sense of the board of the village of New Glarus that we should diversify the cash balances controlled by the village. We think it appropriate and direct staff to purchase CDs, one each of 3 maturities, 6 months, 1 year, 18, in the amounts that I put in 400. The board adopts the resolutions attached to here too, which are these things. These are typical bank resolution things. I just put the forms in here. So we knew we had those. And authorizes President Roger Trutman, Treasurer Kelsey, and Administrator Lauren to be signatories for each of these accounts. Rates for each of the above maturities should be obtained from Lake Ridge, Woodford, and Bank of New Glarus, with the highest rate being chosen for the CD of that maturity. Each depository bank should agree there will be no early withdrawal penalty on the CD if there is a need for liquidity by the village. The village affirmatively states that it will not exercise an early withdrawal without penalty to access a higher rate.
Question, can Lauren statutorily be a signature on? I thought that, because right now how it's set up is it's me and Deanna, because we're statutory officers of the village, and then Roger and Peggy. Because technically Lauren is not an under oath statutory officer. That's my only,
No, you know more than I do.
that's, I don't know if that's the legality,
That's
but
right. I mean,
I was
we
just
did
looking
open
for-
an account.
yeah.
So where is it? That comes up to how many dollars?
I had it at 1,200,000.
So where's this 1,200,000 coming from?
Bingo.
We have that cash?
Pulling of the.
This is as of, this shows 2,600,000 in checking and surplus.
Right, but I mean, a lot of, I mean, that's.
And we get roughly 900,000 in the next couple of months from tax revenue.
Well, we pay, I mean, we have to pay.
Minus
that.
expenses, minus
Yeah.
expenses.
Yeah.
But the whole point is that there, under the 6 month
Next.
liquidity thing, we want 6 months worth of stuff, which is
I think this.
400,000 is about 3 months, right?
It's
See,
not-
in
yeah.
the memo.
We have it, yeah.
She references it, that it's about, so this is what about the,
Okay, I have a question, because you mentioned $400,000 in that
No.
motion,
It's not.
and I don't know if we can do this, but we have that reserve account
yep,
that has $422,000.
Yep.
Just to start, so it maybe gives staff a little bit of a way to ease into this,
That's-
not having to pool funds right away. Could we just take that village
Sure.
reserve
sure.
and use that for this
Right.
CDs, huh?
And split it into 3?
Right,
You could split it into 3, or you could just put the whole thing in one.
Well, whatever.
It's whatever you want.
I mean, because theoretically, the chances of us needing that reserve, knock on wood, are pretty
Yes.
slim.
Right,
And then that would give staff time to figure out the pooling situation, to figure out what accounts we actually can take interest
so
from.
let's change the memo
That makes
to,
more
But I guess,
makes
it-
more sense.
one $400,000 CD,
sure,
one
does
Highest
$400,000.
that make the
highest
most
interest.
sense?
Hmm?
Does
Yeah.
that make the most sense on the bank side? Right, it does, because
They just want to know the check cleared.
but the more, is it right in saying the more money you invest in a CD, the better rate you'll get for the longer amount of time, correct?
Except for this circumstance right now where it's reversed. Short-term rates are higher than
Right.
longer-term rates.
Right,
So we lose about 20 basis points. But my guess is within a couple, 3 months, we're going to be seeing your rates drop down.
right. So.
I'm guessing, but.
So the one $400,000 CD, what is the length, I guess, is my
6
question to you.
months.
6 months is what you're proposing?
You can do 6.
Or
It'd be
what-
easier doing that happens to be the highest rate is 6 months.
And that would be a good,
Can we take that money out of the reserve?
that's what I'm asking, I don't know.
I don't know.
Well,
So you're not
can we
taking it
make
out, Roger, you're just reallocating it from a savings account to a CD. It's still, the dollars are still in there, 422,000 are still there.
And if we
It's
need
just,
to
it's
get it
composed
out.
of
Yeah.
2 parts.
But to be safe, you could make the motion to do this pending that we actually can do it. And if it
I
turns
think
out,
we can.
I think I agree, after golf explained that, as long as it's liquid and
Still,
No.
3 months from now, if something comes up, we need it.
we can get it
or
out.
whatever, we can.
We'll technically have other cash on hand too. that
So
we could-
we're only gonna invest, 1 million of our 9 million
No,
No,
we're only investing
reserve-
400,000
the reserve.
into a CD.
because.
Oh. He wants.
No, we
So
would,
it was 1.2
No,
million.
he just said he'd revise it.
staff would like to start a little bit small.
Yeah.
And so.
So start
we're
with one.
proposing
Okay.
One
CD,
$400,000 CD.
400,000.
Right.
Okay.
And pick this, and you
So
want to pick
everything
this.
stays the same, we're just gonna go with one 400,000 CD, right?
Yes, in the reserve.
And no hours and keep everything else rolling along as.
From the reserve fund.
I mean,
And
I
taking advantage of
I
the
have
interest
to
rates right.
sign an agreement with the bank that the 400,000 is gonna sit there, and then in 6 months, bring it back to the board and be like, okay, your CD's up, what do you wanna do? As long as the board is not depending on me to be like, well, and I mean, I can obviously,
That makes a lot of sense.
right, but I just wanna make sure that
Yes.
as much as I need to be comfortable with it, I wanna make sure that the board is comfortable making those decisions too. And knowing that, well, maybe Lauren and I will have a great handle on it, and we'll be able to tell you guys
I
what we
think
think.
that's reasonable.
But as Mike alluded to, I'm gonna be perfectly honest, my most important job in 24 is running. elections.
Yes.
Um,
Well, when it comes due in 6 months,
Just
if
give me a
we-
ballpark.
400,000 for making 5% is what,
20,000.
20,000?
Yeah, mine,
Yeah.
yeah.
He didn't.
And if we come back, we say, well, that's fine, if we can dump it back in again at
Yeah.
a damn good rate,
Yeah.
just make that motion and it
I have another question.
turns over.
The interest that we make off of the reserve, can we then use that to like pay a salary or do whatever we want with, or does that have to stay?
That's part of our investment policy. We make that decision about what we're gonna do with it.
So legally, we can pull money.
Yeah.
Oh,
Remember what she allocated 35,000 of the projected 200 something that we're gonna earn. The rest is unallocated. If we end up in a deficit for the year, we pull into that. If we got a surplus, we decide what we're gonna do with it.
Right, no, I
That's the
didn't,
part about
yeah.
managing it.
No, I didn't mean that. I meant technically with the reserve money specifically. Are we able, if we make $25,000 in interest on the reserve money that we're investing, can we take that $25,000 of interest and apply it to our general
Yes,
fund deficit?
yes.
Can,
Because the reserve is a function of total
Right.
operating costs. for
Right, I
the year,
just-
and we want to-
The CD comes due, you can take the interest off it and put the
Put the reserve- right,
400,000
right,
back in there.
Right.
But what about all our other, equity? What about our other, account? That's still gonna be in the local governmental
Yeah.
pool, right?
Nothing's changing there.
Right, and that's where, and I guess that's where Lauren and I are saying, you know, we would feel more comfortable if the board wants staff to manage this. About doing one CD for 6 months or whatever the terms are, rather than, I mean, and. I'm very, very in favor of taking advantage of the high interest rates, and I wanna do whatever I can, but I also wanna make sure that. We aren't overloading
So
our,
we're gonna buy one CD and we're gonna let it settle.
if that's what the board wants, yeah.
Well, then
Yeah.
you're gonna know what it took to go and get one, right?
Yeah, I know, I mean,
You're gonna
that
figure-
part doesn't scare me.
Well,
but-
then you gotta figure out, well, where am I keeping it? Right? You're not keeping it under your desk, that kind of.
Right,
So we
Why
got all those things.
Why
that
were
make
we
sense.
under the impression that it was all money that was
well,
gonna?
cause that was the original.
That was the original
Are
motion.
they really all in that
You
municipal
made an
fund or
amendment
are
to
they
his
all
motion.
Lake Ridge and they're paying you?
He
that?
made an amendment based on Kelsey's
What do you mean?
information that we could use this.
It's got Lake Ridge in there,
Just
Paying rate.
I believe.
I think so too. They're desperate for holding on to deposits and disbursements.
I don't know how it works. I know
They use that rate to determine what they're paying you plus a quarter.
I understand it.
Yeah, right, so I
That's
guess
pretty
that's
bad.
my other
So this is
question,
where
and I don't know if anybody here can answer this,
Well,
but Lake Ridge,
So it's a check.
one second,
It's sitting there.
Lake Ridge right now, as Goff alluded to, we're getting really good rates from Lake Ridge because they want to keep us there.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
So
6 months.
are we gonna be in any danger of going to Lake Ridge and saying, okay, well, actually, we're gonna pull $400,000 out of our pool here and take it over to Bank of New Glarus? I mean, could they come back and be like, that's fine, but we're lowering, I don't know.
We don't necessarily know. We aren't committing to the banking.
I know that, but I'm saying theoretically, I wanna make sure that we're thinking this through.
Remember, outside of the school district, this is the best account in town.
Right,
Right?
okay.
They will come over here with no pads on their knees to keep you happy.
So we may get a better rate from Lake.
I hope so, but I just wanna make sure that we're, you know,
This is all about them doing
Right.
business.
right.
That money all over.
So
My
Goff has made a
Sorry,
motion.
Larry.
second,
No, clarify the motion before we. You,
Well, it's gonna be 400,000 now instead of
1.2
1.2 million.
Right.
you gonna do the
For
full
6
four
months.
21, 087, just 400?
400.
400.
You want to divide it up? What do you think?
Oh,
well, my question was,
450 and then.
FDIC, it's only up to 250.
Sure.
Okay,
I mean,
let's,
we're
we're
So
gonna
do
make
you
it,
wanna do 1.4 or 2.200?
we're gonna make it 450,000. And then there could be 3 CDs, 150 each.
So what account am I pulling the extra money?
6
out of?
months, 1 year.
Reserve, yeah.
No, reserve
Surplus,
plans per
surplus.
22.
Oh. Okay.
This is our liquidity fund that we're taking it out
Yeah.
of, so we know we've got liquidity all over the place. So you can either move it into the liquidity fund and take it back out as a CD, or you can just take it, you decide what's easier.
Yeah, I mean, what I'll probably do is if we need to balance out to 450, I'll probably take 25 out of surplus, transfer it into the reserve,
yeah.
and then use that.
Yep, yep, then you got one account you're taking it from, and all the interest is gonna be constant.
So we're not doing we're just gonna do a straight 400. We're not.
No,
gonna do
no, we're doing 450, so we get $350,000 CDs.
Then they're all FDIC insured.
Correct,
But are we doing them for the same 6 months, or are we laddering?
6 year and a
Oh, so
18.
now we're laddering them?
Do the ladder. You get used to
Okay.
how the ladder works
Yep.
and what you have to think about.
So the other question is this, I
I'm
mean,
glad we got padded seats, or my ass would be sore now, so let's keep moving along.
what is your question?
is when are we starting this? Because,
January 1, I
Okay.
got a commitment through January 10th
Okay.
for the rates.
just because staff.
Yeah, no glare.
Yeah.
So,
Well, that's.
Well, if you tell them
when
they
can
want
we
a
get it
commitment
done?
because you already got one, they'll give you one over there at Lake Ridge too.
I mean, if it
What's-
can wait until
what's
after
reason-
New Year, then I can,
What's reasonable, yeah, for you?
if it's simply calling whatever bank the board tells me to call and taking out 3 CDs, that won't take me long, but I mean, does the
Okay.
board know exactly what bank that they're pulling or doing this from, or do we?
I think that his motion was submitting to the three banks and
Okay,
accepting the highest interest rate
Yep.
from whatever bank would give us that rate
yep,
and allow us to withdraw
yep, yeah.
without penalty, but we would have a penalty if we withdrew and invested in a higher interest rate
Right.
CD somewhere else.
Correct.
So what you're asking right now is when staff would have time to call the banks and let them know that we're looking to take out 3 CDs and
Yes.
give us their best offer.
And we would have to be, if it is the Bank of New Glarus, we would have to have that completed on or before January tenth.
So are we gonna have a special?
No, we're giving you the authority now.
Oh,
I got, here's the
gotcha.
resolutions that you can put with our minutes. We're authorizing you with these resolutions.
Yeah, and I would assume you could reach out to the banks and say, can you give us your answer by Friday of next week or whatever, with everybody's holiday. You know,
I could do that this week. Yeah, I'm gone until
And
next
then-
Wednesday and Lauren's gone next week.
yeah,
Ruben has the phone number for the guy who makes.
and then just have Goff's phone number.
What?
I don't know.
Okay, so we got Goff's motion on the table.
It seems
And
reasonable to
I'm
me.
putting C paper, so
And you
hopefully everything's.
second?
okay.
Larry seconded. 3, and you're gonna get a copy of that.
So are these resolutions that we need to,
Just stick them in the minutes. Attach them physically. I referenced them.
Okay.
Because you're gonna sign something like this when you open up the CD.
okay, so these are just
You-
examples.
Yeah, correct.
Gotcha. Can I write example on this?
Well, yes.
Okay. Anything else?
I think so.
All in favor of Goff? Motion, say aye.
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 Is it written in there that we would go with the best offer and that we will seek out 3 banks and
Yes.
go with the best offer and all
Yep.
that?
I mean, are we fine with Leah? I mean, even though statutorily, I don't know that Lauren can be a signature.
No, not Lauren.
I
I thought he removed her after you said that from the motion.
Maybe we just say.
Who the signers are now.
Yeah.
So it'd be Roger, Peggy, me, Deanna. Authorizes our current signers. Can I say that?
There you go.
There
Good.
we go.
Okay.
So where was I? Did I say all in favor aye yet?
Yeah, you said those, you haven't asked those opposed.
No, you
Okay.
said you were getting a sore seat. That's
Yeah.
the last I was.
I said I would have if we didn't have cushions. So,
So
Okay.
just to be clear, this says 1 CD at 1 year and 18 months in the amount of $450.
150 each.
yeah,
There's 3.
450 total
Three
dollars
CDs.
divided by 3.
So,
Put that, make sure that's clear. 150 each at 6 months.
so you want to, because 6 months is crossed off. That's what I'm wondering.
No, I think you want to do 6 months.
Well, right, I know that, but you have it crossed off. That's what I'm asking. I want to make sure I'm clear.
Oh, sorry, that was a prior edition.
So 3 CDs at $150,000 each, 1 at 6 months, 1 at 1 year, 1 at 18 months. Got it.
opposed? Motion carries. Okay, item B then, nothing.
We're good.
On item. Item C, consideration discussion 2024 goals. 54.
Yeah, so staff and I put together a list of goals for 2024. This is a modification of our 2023 goals. I updated the initiatives as well as added some metrics to measure progress towards our goals. So just wanted to provide this to the board, and if you had any changes or thoughts, I'm happy to incorporate them. This is kind of our work plan for the year.
I move to approve the presented 2024 goals.
Do we have a second? Okay, all in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Item D, consideration discussion using building sinking fund for village hall furnace replacement.
Speaking of sinking funds, we need a new furnace in Village Hall. Joe has gone through, well, we've worked with Monroe Heating on several attempted repairs and have been unsuccessful, and so we need to replace it. We have a quote for $3,346. And the building sinking fund currently has $35,000.
Well, I like the first option because it's higher efficiency. And over time, the couple $100 difference is gonna be far exceeded over the life of the furnace rather than the
I agree.
100. So
Yeah.
seems pretty easy. I would make a motion to go with option one,
Unless I
Sorry.
heard wrong.
Yeah, I said the total wrong. It's 4,346.
$4,346. Yeah.
Down wrong.
Second.
Coming from,
Who
Thinking
made the motion?
I did.
Okay, for option one,
Option number one.
and Larry, you seconded?
What's the life of a furnace? But 20, 30 days? Yeah,
20 years.
but 3% is a,
As long as you change the filters.
yeah. Yeah.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Okay, Public Works, Public Safety, consideration discussion temporary Class B fermented malt beverage license application for New Glarus Fire Department for Sportsman's Banquet on 2/3/2024, and I think this was an annual,
Mhm.
they have it every year.
Move to approve.
Thank you.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, motion carried. Okay, item B, stop sign at Fourth Avenue and Sixth Street. Since we straightened the street out back on Fourth Avenue.
Yeah.
They kind of want to control the traffic coming out of the cul-de-sac, and we are going to put a sign back there saying that it's no exit.
Yeah, well, it makes a lot more sense to have them stop there, because if it's ever slippery, you gotta go down the hill with a stop sign.
Joe?
Okay, so we did do some talking about this and, we were gonna put them on a stop sign nail. Because that's a T,
Mhm.
and if you have an accident, if you look at accident statistics. First to get T-boned is 6 times worse. Coming down like that, and they already have to stop once, coming down the hill. And 2, if we stop traffic coming out like this, that's not stopping anybody from the other way. So we decided that maybe it's better off to put the stop sign on the hill coming down to stop them. And that way they're not coming down the hill and just turning.
Oh, so you changed.
Both ways. Yep, you can see both ways stop. Instead of, where if you're coming out of the cul-de-sac, you're stopping for people coming down the hill and coming at you. And we thought that,
And I will say there's more traffic Fourth than there is coming down Sixth.
yeah, if you look at the rest of the, besides, well, the only difference is you look at Fifth Street right before it. Fifth Street goes through, Fourth Avenue stops.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but anywhere else, we stop coming down the hill. For instance, Fourth Avenue to Fifth, Fifth Avenue to Sixth. You know, we stop coming down.
Okay. Okay, we need a motion.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Consideration discussion stop signs at 10th Avenue and Durst Road. Does everybody know where this is? You know where Durst Road goes from 39 up
Yeah,
to,
oh, that's 10th Avenue.
Goes
It's
over.
really blue.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, Joe's pointing it.
Yeah. Okay.
But you're planning on putting it on this side of Durst?
We're gonna put it here, coming out of 10th Avenue, coming to the intersection. There's a yield sign here already. And if we're gonna do the stop sign, I wish that the stop signs, I wish it would said, because I would really like to take the yield sign out, put a stop sign there, put a stop sign there.
It does say stop
Yeah.
signs.
It's plural.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'd like to
Stop
replace the
sign on
yield
10th
sign with a
Avenue.
stop sign,
Okay,
put a new stop sign there on the corner. So that way, if anybody is coming up this hill, they have the right of way to keep going.
Yeah.
And then that stops them because that way nobody can go through the intersection.
Yeah.
And that's what we've seen, right, Mike?
Yeah, especially during the winter time with
Yeah.
the elevation of that hill, you need to keep your momentum going up it.
To make
And so if you come into a situation where somebody is going forward and half the people do not use their right hand turn signal to go down that hill, so you're gonna turn right, even though they're not. You, there's a good chance that you'll have a T-bone accident there.
All right.
before we vote on this, I also, have you looked at 7th Street and 10th Avenue? There is nothing on that intersection. No yield, no stop, nothing.
Yeah, you're coming down that hill.
Are you talking about by,
7th Street is by the
where Sadie used
museum.
to live?
Who?
By Ziegler's?
Yeah.
I don't know for sure.
Yeah,
Mike
so
knows.
it's- yeah, so it's the intersection,
But-
because you're coming down that hill and going up that hill. It maybe having a stop sign or a yield sign on 7th.
Yeah, because there's nothing at that
On
intersection.
either side, because have that yield, because you gotta slow down then, because traffic goes pretty damn quick up and down 10th Avenue.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
I-
7th is the one that Shelley Johnson lives on,
yes,
and that goes behind, over to the cemetery behind,
Yep,
yeah,
the Undertaker shed.
yeah.
But it's that intersection. I was just up there yesterday and there's nothing there.
I can.
Oh, there are no stop signs, are there?
Huh?
Okay.
Yeah, there's no.
I
nothing
think
there.
we have to have that as a secret item.
Yeah, no, I'm not asking for anything
Yeah,
tonight. I'm
it's a
just-
secret item.
Yeah, Joe and Jeff can look at it and check it out. Okay,
So I'll make a motion to install stop signs on 10th Avenue so that this road has the right of way.
okay,
Is that clear?
Yes.
Second.
okay, all in favor, say aye.
Alright.
Opposed, motion carries. Okay, Parks and Rec. Consideration discussing candy cane inclusive playground project.
All right, on page 61, there's a memo. I just wanted to update you all on that project. So as you're aware, we've budgeted 80,000 towards the candy cane project in 2024. We have, New Glarus Cares has gotten a commitment from a foundation for another 80, and then New Glarus Cares is raising 40,000 for a total project budget of 200,000. I just wanted to kind of provide a budget breakdown of that to make you all aware. I do have one amendment to this budget. Shelley and I were talking a little bit more. We're actually gonna take 5,000 from rubber surfacing and put it towards the parking lot / sidewalk. So it should be 85 under surfacing and then 20,000 under parking lot sidewalk. But I just wanted to kind of provide this update. Kind of the next steps for this project will be finalizing the vendor we want to work with. And so I'm actually going to provide this budget to 2 vendors that we've been talking to and have been really responsive, and have them kind of submit their final design, and then we'll select which one we want to work with. And then what we'll do is do a direct purchase through a cooperative purchasing agency, which allows us to not go through bidding, which is very nice, because playgrounds, you have to go through the vendor you're working for. You can't bid out a design that a vendor provided because they're the only ones who install their own equipment, or you'll have like a super high labor cost. But the other thing is we're going to do a community build, which doesn't require labor anyway, so we wouldn't have to bid out labor. I'm talking really fast, but basically it's a way that we can select a vendor and work with them to finalize the design, and then go ahead and purchase the playground equipment and get it installed via volunteer work.
And we'll borrow for this?
Yep. Yeah, we'll borrow the 80,000.
So if we install it, do we void any warranties?
Nope, so the playground vendor will supervise the community build. It's very common
It's like doing a
practice.
community fulfillment
Yeah, they
Community.
supervise and then
Yeah.
volunteers put it
Yep.
together.
under their
I think
direction.
we did that, I think we did that over to Valtel.
We might have, well, didn't we do it out on, going out of town across from Pet Milk for that one house habitat?
Oh, that was Habitat, but I mean, as far as building playground,
Oh, yeah,
I think
yeah.
we did it over at Valtel, it was all
I-
volunteers,
I-
I believe.
I think you're right.
Okay.
Okay, so.
So I guess if you're comfortable, I'll continue moving forward with providing this budget and keeping that going, I think.
'Cause you've got to apply for a grant,
Yep,
we have to get those numbers back soon, so we can meet the guideline, timeline for the grant you're applying.
I want to apply for a grant that's due at the end of January.
Yeah.
And we have to submit a design to them to be able to apply
Yes.
for it. So we select a vendor, we can get a design that we can send to the grant. So
Okay,
What's the total on the grant, possible grant?
it would match the foundation. So
80,000.
another 80K that we could put towards
you can really
more equipment and,
more handicap accessibility on that
Yeah.
hill.
yeah.
Because that is a challenge.
Oh, sure.
Okay.
You,
So we don't
ADA
need-
compliance is very,
I
very
don't need one
difficult.
10. I mean,
And with the grade change on that hill, it's gonna.
I mean, I guess if you wanna approve the.
So that grant could be 80, so we can have
Another 80.
That's just, I don't think we typically do that. It's just a breakdown of.
Okay, well, it says we don't need a motion on that, so. Item B, consideration discussion Parks and Rec Director job description on 63.
Yeah, so, Megan, our pool director, is going to be, this next summer, helping us out with recreation scheduling and coordinating. And so we wanted to update a job description that encompass that work of the pool and the recreational duties. So, Parks and Rec has already reviewed this and signed off on it, but I also wanted to make you all aware of this change. We're really excited to have Megan on board doing this. She's already planning on talking with the youth baseball associations and coordinating with them and coming up with new ideas for our recreational programming. So, yeah, if you have any comments on the job description, happy to make edits, but I think it's in a good spot.
Is it the same job description that Chris had, or did he have more?
No, we clarified because it was just.
I mean, I read it and I
It
didn't
needed
know
some
what.
help.
Yeah, and I took out any park maintenance related duties out because that's really what our public works staff are helping us with now, in
Okay.
addition to the LTEs.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah, I didn't have anything to compare it to, so, no,
Yeah.
okay.
And if you need a motion to approve this, I will
Sure.
make the motion to approve the Parks and Recreation Director job description.
Second.
Okay, motion and second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Personnel and finance, consideration discussion, police chief straight pay hours. And this is we're doing since the department's been short staffed, he's asking for 4 more months. He does have a very good potential another officer possibly lined up. Jeff, I'll let you go from here.
Yeah, we have another guy lined up. I'm hoping to do a conditional offer here in the next couple of weeks and then, get him to get into the psychological and drug testing, medical. He's coming from, Dublin.
And they,
Because he looks-
start till about April, right?
Well, he'll start hopefully in January, but then they have to go through the 3 months of training, field training and all that. The good thing is he doesn't have to go to the academy too. And we also have an officer that's gonna be taking some leave for having a child in the end of February and all of March pretty much. And, we'll be down to 2 officers.
So this again would be 30 hours a month, which sometimes Jeff doesn't use that. Sometimes he does go over.
I try to get the part-timers and people to work. That's another dilemma we talked meeting before is a part-timer that worked a lot at the beginning of the year, he's retired. Well, his hours only come off the day when it passes when he works. So I can't all of a sudden just give him 100 hours like I did before. Now I gotta let time pass to get his hours down.
I move to approve the 30 extra hours each month for January, February, March, April. At
Second.
straight pay, I think that's what he's.
Yeah. You second go?
Yeah.
Okay. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. I think we got this on here so early.
I
I
can-
can't do
I
anything
can tell
until
you.
April anyway.
So the committee appointments is on here because it was discussed at a personnel and finance meeting recently that two board members were interested in switching, committees. Goff will be moving over to personnel and finance. Mike would be moving over to the fire department.
Fire
And
district.
fire district, I'm sorry, the fire district. And then the only other change, major change on the committee appointments that you'll see is now that you passed that resolution for our election inspectors, those are all listed on here as well and updated, but that was passed via resolution at the last meeting. The major thing that you're passing is the change with Goff and Mike, and that would be effective January 1st, 24.
Do you need a motion for that?
Yes.
I'll make the motion.
Sorry, Kelsey, I forgot.
Oh, gosh.
Second,
Okay, we have a motion and second. All in favor, say aye.
Uh,
Aye. Opposed, motion carries.
Can I just say one reminder about the
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
One quick reminder in regards to election stuff for those that are running, the declaration of non-candidacy, if you were gonna file that, I had asked to have it by the end of the meeting tonight. The statutory deadline is on Friday, but Village Hall is closed on Friday for the holiday. So if there's somebody that's running that is interested in filing their declaration of non-candidacy, I beg you to please get it to now Deanna either tomorrow or Thursday between 7:30 and 4. If that's not possible and you need to turn it in on Friday, let me know, but that would require the village to pay me holiday overtime pay for the full day. So, and if nobody's interested in turning in the non-candidacy, that's totally fine. I just want to make sure that we're aware of what the statutory deadline is. Otherwise, I assume that people are circulating papers. The deadline for that is 5 PM on the 2nd. And if you are up for reelection and you don't turn in candidacy papers and you don't turn in a declaration of non-candidacy, that will automatically extend that period 72 hours for everybody, for the full public, until Friday at 5, which would then cause Village Hall to be open an hour of overtime on that Friday.
It's just
So what I-
second up, right?
Right, what I'm asking is if you are not running, to please turn in your declaration of non-candidacy, and if you are planning on running, please have your papers in by 5 PM on the 2nd of January. And that's what I'll say.
Okay. Item 10, announcement, the village board will adjourn into closed session pursuant to state statute 1985 1E, delivering or negotiating the investment of public funds or conducting other specific public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session and may reconvene to open session pursuant to state statutes 1985. Property purchase. We need a motion and a roll call vote.
So moved.
Second,
Mike Bell,
yes.
Larry Susie,
yes.
Mike Marty,
Yes.
Peggy Cruz, Goff Thompson,
Yes.
Roger Troutman.
Yes.
Everybody have a good Christmas.
You too, Joe. Yep. Merry Christmas.
Adios.
You gotta shut that off then too.
Thank you. I also forgot.